Hello, Facebook. This is Debby Enoe from Teacher Success Coach with another of my guests from around the world. Welcome to another episode of the Challenges and Triumph of Online Teaching during this challenging time at the Female Educator Roundtable. The host, Debby Enoe, and my guest, Sarah, who is going to introduce herself.
Okay, I'm Sarah Amos, and I live in the United States, especially northern San Francisco Bay Area, that'd be Northern California. And I've been teaching for over 20 years, actually a little bit longer than that, but I took an 8-year break for kid 2 and 3. And I teach middle schoolers, which is anywhere from around age 12, 7th grade, to some of my students in 8th grade, 14. So they're ready to go off to high school after 8th grade in our country. And I teach history, US history for 8th grade and medieval history for 7th grade. And I also teach English language arts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I need to apologize for the late coming on because we've had some challenges with Zoom.
Yes. Yes.
One of the many.
Yes.
But as educators, as always, we think on our feet and we get it right. So we got it sorted. And here we are coming to you half an hour late. Apologize. But you know, that's the reality of it. So could you imagine we actually teaching some of your children online using these platforms? These are some of the challenges we experience. Because remember, we have not been trained on these platforms. We are learning it as we go along. And I must say, we've been doing a fantastic job. We actually survived. We actually swam. We did not sink. So that must be good. Right. Today we are looking at unacceptable behavior. How does one deal with unacceptable behavior? Last week we looked at behavior, but we also had a behavioral specialist. But now there are no behavior specialists. It's just us as educators dealing with this unacceptable behavior. So Sarah, how do you deal with unacceptable behavior on the platform?
Absolutely good question, because we're facing other behavior issues that we don't have in the classroom. And that was part of our, when we first initially went distance learning, we were like, yay, we don't have behavior problems. We don't have to send that child to the office or give them a timeout. But then other little behaviors developed while we're in our Zoom meetings. The primary issues are more about behavior in front of the camera or when they're logged in. And initially, before I learned that there's actually settings that you can change in Zoom to prevent them from doing those things. That was, you know, once we figured that out, then that ended those behaviors. But some of the behaviors were definitely ones we would never see in the classroom. Like I had one little boy who wanted to constantly share his screen. So we knocked that out. You can put it on setting. No, only the hosts can share this screen. I didn't know that. So he wanted to share his drawings, you know, 7th grader, his little doodles. And it's like, okay, figured that out. No more sharing screen. Only I can share the screen. Because I was a little concerned. I'd heard stories about kids sharing things that were inappropriate. The other issue that we've had is when they could do the virtual background.
Oh, yes.
I haven't seen any naked pictures, thankfully. There was no, actually, it was only from the Zoom guy. The guy who was giving us a lesson on Zoom shared his screen. In the corner of his screen was a really inappropriate picture. So thankfully, I haven't done that, and neither have my students. But it's like, okay, what if they do that? Most of my kids are pretty good. I don't think anybody would do that. The other issue was that I found I really struggled with was requiring the students to show their faces and don't play around with those backgrounds. You know, if you want one background, keep it at one background. Don't be playing it around with it to share with your friends or whatever, because that's just not okay. And I had to be a little strict about that and say, you know, if I don't see your face, you have to put your video on. And if I can't hear you, I'm going to have to excuse you from the meeting. I'm going to have to kick you out. And thus the lovely little thing with the waiting room. Didn't know that we had a waiting room where you can admit a kid, so you can confirm that it's like, I need to see your face. No, I don't want to look at your dog's face or Bart Simpson or whatever. So that was a real challenge for me, was the requiring them to show their face. Unless they had some kind of technology issue, then they could chat with me. So I did allow the chat, but they could only chat with, I think I got it, so they only chatted with me, so they couldn't chat with each other. The other issue was, just like in the classroom, is being distracted by other things. Like I have one little girl who was constantly on her phone. We're fixing her hair, you know, and like, well, that she did in class. So I always had to remind her, it's not a hair salon. Make sure you do your hair someplace else. And the phone issue. Elena, darling, put your phone away. And so that was, I had to be strict about that. It's like, I don't want to see the phone. However, sometimes out of the screenshot, you don't see the phone, but you see them looking down, you know, they're using the phone. So then you have to remind them, I need for you to pay attention. I don't want to deal with, you know, so put it away if you're using it. You know, in the classroom, we have a confined setting. With the Zoom, the kids could Zoom outside, they could Zoom in their bedrooms, they could Zoom with a bunch of people running around, you know, if there were siblings, that was challenging for that kid. But the outside part, I'd say, you know, you're required to take some notes. So I don't know if you can do that when you're outside. That, you know, I would maybe recommend a different setting for you. The other issue I had was not every student attending the Zoom lesson. So, you know, I could record it. I mean, that's a wonderful feature of Zoom. You can record it and upload it to a platform we use, Google Classroom. But there's no way to tell if they ever actually looked at the lesson. You know, it doesn't keep account, you know, how many views. Unlike YouTube, you can see how many views or whatever. So those were my biggest challenges. Nothing super serious behavior wise. Most of the kids were pretty respectful. I didn't really have to kick any kids off. I did have to threaten it, you know, saying, my darling student, you know, you need to be appropriate and stay on topic. That's the other thing they want to all talk about, you know. And that was the other thing, is learning about how to use Zoom. You can have them muted right when they come in. You admit them and they're on mute. So they're not all talking at once, which, you know, that's an in-class behavior problem too, is they're all, you know, like, raise hand, please. Remember to raise your hand. But nothing serious, like, you know, someone, you know, harassing another student or anything like that, which we see more in school, you know. You know, making fun, just really stressing that respect part. Like, if don't comment if somebody says something, just like in the classroom. We respectfully listen, we attentively listen, which is far more challenging on Zoom. You know, it's like, show you're listening, look at the camera, participate respectfully. Most of my kids did, you know, very few, you know, admonitions from me. I don't really have to do that because it was new for them too, as long as with me. So, yeah, no serious problems except for attendance. I would just say, if I'm gonna have to start the school year, well, we are likely going into distance learning once the flu season hits. We're all wrapping our heads around that. We're starting off with AB day, you know, like one group of students one day, another group, so we can control the gathering, control social distancing, you know. They're all gonna have to wear masks. There may be other issues. Once to check back with me in August.
Yes, when you start back. Yes,
when there's other issues. But we are, as teachers in our district, we are getting prepared to go to distance learning at it like that once the flu season hits, or we get shut down because there's too many contacts or too many cases. We're putting kids in stable cohorts. We have about 430 30 students at our school. So we're going to try to control those numbers every day, only 4 days a week. So we'll see our students twice a week, basically, for our subject area. But if I get sick or somebody has a contact, we're going to distance learning like that. So that stable cohort, the whole school won't have to shut down. Just that group will then be distance learning at home. So, so we're, ready. But yeah, I've learned a few things in terms of using this platform, Zoom, for teaching, and it was a little bumpy start, with just like I said, those behave besides the technology, and learning how to use all the security measures we could put in, because we heard horror stories, of course, about Zoom bombing and really inappropriate stuff, but my students are fairly innocent, sheltered little darlings. So
that's good.
And I don't want to give them any ideas, but but the biggest, like I said, the biggest two issues were, which I took care of right away, was the screen sharing and the muting them, and then also requiring them to show up, because I made it mandatory. I learned that. And I still had problems with attendance. So that's going to have to be worked out in the fall. So we are going to spend a concentrated time talking about the expectations that should we go to distance learning, or when it's your at home day, I'll be in the classroom, but not all the students will be in the classroom. What the behavior expectations and the academic expectations are going to be, which we didn't ever get a chance to set up. Initially. So now we're going to spend about probably the first week of school really hitting those. Okay, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. This is what the expectations are, including educating the parents. That was the other issue, was that parents weren't requiring their students, let's say school starts at 8:45. You wouldn't let your kids stay in bed because they stayed up the night before till 2 a.m. playing video games. You'd get their butts out of bed and you'd say, you get to school. But because of distance learning, we had to call one parent to say, so-and-so hasn't taken his test and he's got 15 minutes to do it. She was like, oh, I guess I should wake him up. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, yeah, I guess you should.
Oh my goodness.
So those are that's from the parent perspective. It affected us as teachers, of course, but and it affected the student because of grades and they're not meeting their standard. So yeah, that was I wish I could tell a really good story about somebody who did an X-rated Zoom bombing or something like that, but I don't have any good stories like that. Wait until August.
Exactly, isn't it? I had one of the, I don't think she said it online actually, an educator. She was saying that, one of the children was doing cartwheel. Because we were not talking about, I was just saying to her, what's some of the stories you've got? And then because it was not unacceptable behavior during that day. So she was just saying, one of them was doing cartwheel. I said, how did you get over that? She said she couldn't, because the child was doing his cartwheel. So he had no intention. He had no interest in what's happening.
No.
So those are some of the things.
We had we would have a lunchtime meeting, the school counselor, and she invited teachers to participate. And it was for the students to come get some, social, emotional, and just social. It was like, but we actually had a kid, and they were at their family vacation home or on vacation. School was not over yet, and they were doing their Zoom from their little paddle boat on the water.
Oh my goodness.
But it wasn't an academic class, so that wasn't, something we had to say, could you get to shore and then Zoom? But, it was fine. But I did have, you'd be surprised, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, you think they're too cool to be, showing their toys. But we literally would have kids go, oh, look at my dog, look at my pet so-and-so, and it would dance across the screen, but
Oh my
Those are
goodness.
easy things. I don't know how I deal with the cartwheels other than, can you maybe do those at another time? You know, like
Exactly.
after we're done with this lesson.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's like talking about some of the challenges of, in the classroom, you could actually sit next to them and say, what are you doing? But on Zoom, it's just you and them. How did
Yes.
the parents support? Did you get any of the parents supporting you in terms of, in relationship to the behavior?
I think so. When we had attendance issues and a
Mm,
student not doing the work, just like we would, have in the classroom, you contact the parent. A lot of them were, supportive, but I heard a lot of excuses too.
mm,
Oh, they're depressed, they're feeling socially isolated, which are legitimate concerns.
mhm, mhm,
But it was also like, okay, I'm going to let them sleep till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe they have, this problem or whatever, which concerned me. And so my contact with the parent was really more about concern and giving the parent ideas to support the child.
mhm, mhm,
And, because this was new for parents too.
mhm,
And, and selfishly, if they had more than one child, they might want the teenager to be sleeping till 2 o'clock, because then they wouldn't have to deal with them. Because
yes,
normally we're dealing with them at 2 o'clock
exactly,
in the afternoon.
exactly.
So, it was like, maybe they were just trying to, not, so that was kind of more of a parental issue, is this hands off. I'm not going to make my kid do anything.
Mhm,
If I had, multiple opportunities in Zoom. So if one class I offered 2 times for, 2 times a week, and of course any private Zoom meeting a student would need, that was offered to them, plus videos posted for them to look at something, a lesson or examples or whatever. And
mhm,
some kids never took that opportunity. Even when I contacted the parent to push them to
mhm,
reach out. It's hard for middle school students to do that anyway. But
mhm,
I didn't ever get a parent, yelling at me or telling me I was doing something wrong,
mhm.
which of course, in 20 years, I have had a few of those.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the most part, the problem that I saw from the parent was not necessarily lack of support of me, but just too much of a hands-off approach. Like, ooh, I don't want to, I don't want to make my kid go to that Zoom meeting, whatever. So there's a
Mhm,
lot more excuse giving, I think.
mm, mm,
So
mm, mm, mm.
it
It's
might be
interesting.
just the,
Yeah, carry on. Go ahead.
I was saying that might be more of a particular issue in the Bay Area, in the community which I work. They're they're fairly well off, upper middle class,
Okay.
professional, employed, college educated parents. So it's not inner city, which has its altogether different issues with respect
Mhm,
to equity. But we are very fortunate we were able to provide technological support, and that sort of thing for our students. I don't think if you went to the south of us in our county, or even in San Francisco, or even across the Bay, different issues. So, when I'm talking about a kid writing on a whiteboard or sharing a stuffed animal on the screen to distract everybody, that is such a small problem compared to what, you know, um,
mhm.
less affluent areas
Yeah,
experience, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. The interesting thing about this, when you actually say that the fact that the parents are not very proactive and giving excuses, when time for the child to move on, then the educators get blamed. Oh, well, the children are now falling behind, lost education. What are you going to do? Right?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
That's what
Yeah.
they're going to be saying
We
to us.
didn't,
What are you going to do? Not realizing that you did not support us on this journey.
right. Yes. There was, not that we go into this profession to, just like we don't expect from our children gratitude, you don't expect to have the parents go, oh, you're so wonderful, you got us, I appreciate you. You know, I get that once in a while, you know, a parent will say, oh my God, I so much appreciate your support and understanding or whatever. I didn't go into the profession for that. But you're right, when it comes to who's going to be responsible. And yeah, it gets directed as we chose not to give grades for this trimester. Our school year is divided by trimesters. We gave a pass, or IE standing for insufficient evidence, because there were a few kids who did not do anything. And again, the parents are like, oh my gosh, last minute, 4 weeks before or 3 weeks before the end of the trimester, we sent notice to the student and the parents saying, you know, after multiple contact with the parents, you're not going to get a pass, you'll get an insufficient evidence, which is not a fail, but in their minds, that's how they see it. So it's like, well, what can you do? So it is on the teacher. What are you going to do so my child doesn't get an IE? A few parents, the majority of them are like, oh my God, I don't want this, because they're thinking, oh my God, my child's failing and they're not going to go to the next grade. Well, yeah, unfortunately, in this country, we pass them on, even if they don't meet the standard, to the next grade.
Yeah.
But you're right. That is an issue for, I think, more primary teachers, you know, those youngers that, you know, are just learning how to read. I think the deficits are greater because of this distance learning time. They can't work independently, and the parent's stressed out and has to, you know, do their work, like you were describing one of your teachers that you've interviewed. You know, they have struggles. I would never teach younger kids, although I am tutoring my grandson right now because my daughter was like, oh my God, I can't deal with a 6-year-old. And I'm like, well, I can't deal with a 6-year-old, but some things, there's not much difference between a 6-year-old and a 7th grader, you know. But yeah, it is, you're right. And we may get this more next year.
Yeah,
at
definitely.
The middle school level, because it'll be like, oh, well, he never learned that. What are you gonna do about it? And so I think we're prepared that we're gonna have to do some amount of remediation. Again, it's not as much as the primary grades are gonna have to do, because luckily I don't teach math. Good thing, because I'm not good at it. And with history, they're gonna get it again in high school. It'll be a repeat, it'll be more in depth. But like US history, if we didn't cover everything in US history this year, that's okay. We covered the main things. They'll get it again in high school, it's required, and also in college if they go on to college. So, you know, I don't feel as bad if we skip, you know, medieval history. They're going to get world history again in high school, but it maybe won't be as focused on the same standard. But, you know, so we can. So nobody's going to, the parent's not going to go, oh, wow, they never learned about the Nok people, you know, or the ancient Egyptians. Well, you know, we can do some remediation. Like I'll probably start off the 7th grade with, you know, the fall. We always talk about the fall of Rome, but I might go backward a little bit, knowing that maybe the 7th grade teachers, the 6th grade teachers didn't get there. So
okay.
Parents aren't gonna come back and get me for that.
That probably wouldn't get you, but they try to get some of us, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly, saying that, oh, we have failed the children, you know, look, they've missed out on this, they've missed out on that, not acknowledging what the role was as a parent in all of that. That's the sad thing about it.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
In terms of attendance, what percentage of, you know, of students you actually had coming on?
Really low. I had, let's see, I had 96 students total in class, regular class, 1 8th grade, and then I teach English and history together. So I'd had them for a block period. So 90 of the 96, well, I'll start with my 8th grade history class. I had one meeting with them a week, and then there were other assignments. I would say in that one meeting a week, I would see maybe 12 out of the 27, so 50%. The other classes, not so much. My English and history of 7th grade, I had 2 meetings a week. Well, actually, I had 2 days a week that I could meet with them with multiple times offered. And all total, I think I never got more than 28 out of my 53.
Wow.
So
Okay.
some days there was even less than that, like 10, 11. And I honestly don't know why that is, because we scheduled it. So it wasn't like they could say, oh, I had another class that I had to go to another Zoom meeting, because we had, you know, Tuesdays and Thursdays were language arts, social studies, math had their days, you know, the elective teachers had their days. And that didn't, and then I made a mistake, and it's like, okay, maybe I need to make this mandatory, that part of your grade is you show up. The first time I did that, I had really almost all my kids between the 2 time periods. After that, that was only 1 day. So I don't know what the answer is that.
Yeah.
Other than in the fall, when we're training the kids, we're going to train the parents too. And it's going to be, the expectation is, if there is a Zoom meeting scheduled, a lesson scheduled, your child must attend it. But that's if we're in distance learning. We're going with a hybrid when we start in August.
Okay.
But yeah, but it's not going to involve, you know, I'm teaching one group and then they go home and do the assignments or projects or whatever we're assigning in class, and the other group comes, they get the lesson. And so the expectation is, on your day that you're not in school, it's not play day.
Yeah.
And we're going to emphasize that with the parents too. It's not play day. It's not, I'm on the computer playing games day. It's a day to work on projects, you know, to communicate with your classmates who are also not at school that day, to do projects, to collaborate, to create. So it will be, I think, still the attendance issue, I think, still going to be, because we're also offering to some parents who are not comfortable sending their kids back even on a 2-day-a-week rotation, just for various reasons. You know, kids have immune issues, or parents are concerned, they have elderly people in the home, or whatever. The district is offering them full-time distance learning.
Okay.
So there'll be but I won't have to plan for that group, because I think they're planning on having a teacher designated for the students who are at home learning, distance learning. We're calling distance learning, as opposed to the hybrid. Yeah. So,
okay, so when you guys start back in August, you guys are starting in August, right?
Yes, middle of August.
Okay, so you guys are going on 3 days a week?
4 days.
4 days a week.
The 5th day will be for more intensive, like your special ed kids or kids who need extra help. Also teacher planning day, because the way we're planning on starting is staggered starts. Like one grade starts a time, we'll have to check their temperature, get them to a classroom. They're going to stay in the classroom, whereas normally the students rotate to our classroom. So the teachers are going to rotate, so that we don't have masses of kids going from class to class. We've been mandated to control the gatherings, control the distance. They have to have 6 feet, face coverings, and then the school has to spend more time sanitizing the area. So if they're in one area and the kids are not, that group of kids isn't moving, it's much easier to clean than you have multiple kids moving in from, you know, they're still gonna gather. We're gonna have a whole nother set of discipline issues.
Exactly.
Wear the mask. 6 feet. Too many of you are gathered together. Separate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in terms of, you see, I'm looking at a lot of issues there. So what happens when they're going to go to the toilets?
Exactly. Because the people who designed our school, in their infinite wisdom in planning schools, they only gave the students one bathroom. You know, one for girls, one for boys. Now we have restrooms in the gym, and we have a restroom in the office that we have pretty much designated that for more of gender neutral, but we're not encouraging students to use them. So they're going to be creating porta potties, you know, the
Oh, yes, yeah.
Kind of potty with a sink on the outside, you know, so they can wash because they have to wash their hands. I see problems with that.
Exactly. So do I.
Like one time during construction, we had one of those for the construction workers, and multiple times it was tipped over.
Oh my goodness. So how are you guys gonna
imagine? Oh my God, it's
so how are you gonna guys cope with that?
I guess we'll deal with it. Oh, we're gonna be potty monitors now on top of it being nurses and sanitizers.
Oh my
and
goodness.
pushing our cart of educational supplies from one room to the other.
Oh my goodness.
So I'll be building up some muscle. Yeah. It's time to retire, I think, but I don't know how this year is going to go. Normally I have a lot of fun, so I'm feeling a little anxious about it. You know, but because, you know, in our country, the cases continue to rise.
Yeah, exactly, isn't it?
You know, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. You should save that for another
discussion time. Yes, because that's a big one.
Absolutely.
That's more than an hour's discussion.
Yes, exactly. We could talk hours on that. Yeah. So yeah, there's going to be a whole altogether different discipline issues than we have strictly distance learning. And I'm sure the teachers of the younger children have more, you know, have had more issues in terms of like the cartwheel issue. I can't see a 7th grader doing that in front of his peers.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, yeah.
The question is, who is going to be wiping the, you know, like sanitizing the workplace, the areas? Who is going to be doing that?
That's a good question, because our district, like a lot of schools in California, is facing a huge budget cut. They have last year, and this year is even worse. So they, you know, laid off the custodians. But they're going to hire them back. But I don't know if they're going to hire more. But where's that money coming from? That's another question. So the teachers, I expect, we're in negotiations right now with the district. The union is in negotiations with it. So I'm sure we're going to be doing the temperatures and, you know, checking them as they come in the classroom. So I go, you better give me a shield, whatever. And I suspect that we will be doing at least some surface cleaning with special spray. Because the custodians just can't get into each and every classroom. That's the reality. If you have 2 custodians for a school that's quite large. Yeah. In a normal year, I didn't, you know, they never cleaned my tables. I always cleaned the tables. The custodians never did. And they'd vacuum like twice a week. So now they're, oopsie, we're having a connection problem, I think. Yeah, so I think the teachers are going to be having to take on a little bit more of that. I'm not cleaning toilets, I'll tell you that right now.
My goodness. Yeah, but the fact that
I won't do it.
Yeah, but as usual, educators have so many hats they're wearing. Because now you're saying that you guys are now nurses, where you have to take the temperature. So when you take the temperature, if a student has a high temperature, you guys are going to be sending them home, right?
Or I don't, you know, where are you going to put them? You can't put them in the little teeny tiny nurse's office. Exactly. Which I don't know why the nurse has an office. There's no nurse. But, you know, so what are we going to erect an isolation tent and have them go there until the parents come to pick them up? And who's supervising them?
Exactly. It's like all these challenges.
That hasn't been worked out. Yes, that has not been worked out yet. So we'll see.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so fun to be teaching.
Exactly, isn't it? So now educators have some more roles to fulfill, like the teacher, like the nurse, like cleaning up desanitizing the workplace, etc. Whoa. Yeah. I haven't thought of any of those things in terms of us going back. That haven't crossed my mind, because it just didn't cross my mind. you know, as to
I'm
who is
sorry.
going
I'm
to do it.
sorry.
Exactly.
I apologize.
As to who is going to do it, when it's going to be done. I didn't, because you see, before we left, they actually had the cleaners actually doing they were actually doing the door handles and doing the banisters. And I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, okay, you're doing it. The minute you finish, the students are already on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking,
Right.
you know, another setup need to be done. I don't know, because as soon as the woman actually finished it and she's telling the child off, and then another one came and joined, and you're thinking, okay, something
After
has
they
to
went
be
like this,
realistic.
or
Exactly, isn't it? Exactly. Especially when they're going to especially when they're going towards the door handle. You're thinking, oh Lord.
elbows.
Exactly, isn't it? That's the thing about it. I see so many, you know, new behavior issue when they go back to school.
Absolutely. And we'll have to be just like we're used to. Oh, that's a new problem. Oh, I got to come up with a solution like that.
Yeah.
But some of this we have talked about, at least as a district, because we had a committee at the end of the school term. I was a part of that committee, in that we wanted to talk about how are we going to open schools, because there's also the possibility we are not, because of whatever. So it's really what the health department says or the governor says.
Yeah.
But you know, we're planning on it, and we knew that we couldn't just open the doors and let all 440 kids come into school. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Although they don't typically show a lot of symptoms, and their infections when they get it are fairly mild for the most part. It's the elderly people like me that to be more at risk. I mean, so it's really, how do you protect the children? How do you protect the teacher? And then the teacher's constantly going to be like, oh, am I, you know, is the next day somebody going to tell me, oh, there was a contact, you're all now going to be distance learning before everybody else. So you know, it is I'm sure you're feeling this too, is kind of this certain level of anxiety about you know, what it's going to look like and how you're going to manage. Because after so many years of teaching, I can manage a classroom like this. I got your name, I got power over you, because I can call, hey, you Johnny, whatever, stop, you know. But there's just so many challenges that, you know, how do you get to know the kids when you only see them twice a week? And you know, at least when we went on distance learning in March, I had almost the whole entire year. So we had this relationship I had a relationship with my students. There were already behavior expectations set down. They knew how far they could get with Ms. Amos, you know, like, oh, don't do that, she'll make, you know. But it's going to be a whole altogether different thing.
It's going to, you know, that's the thing, because, you know, you'll be coming from online if you are going to go into the classroom with a whole new set of tools, which some of them you might be able to use and some you won't, because you now have a new set of behavior issue when you actually get to the classroom, because there are new things that never existed before that is now existing.
Got it.
It's
I'm exhausted already.
Exactly. Just the thought of it, you're thinking, oh my goodness.
Is it nap time? No. It's the time for my afternoon nap? No, it's not.
Exactly. And then you will have, you know, it's like, then you have the parents to contend with as well. So there's a barrage of things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. What tips would you actually give an educator? There was just one track I was looking at initially, tips in relationship to the behavior online, but now the behavior when you're actually going into the classroom.
Yeah, and there are definitely some behavior expectations that fit with both, you know, scenarios or both scenes. And I would say you definitely need to set and train the students those procedures. like how you do this, how you come into the classroom, and it doesn't matter how old they are, they all need to learn that. How you are when you're at home, what is the expectation? We're actually planning on really emphasizing these at the beginning of the school year. I always do in my classroom, but as a school, we're going to be much more coordinated in our efforts to do that, not only with the students, but with the parents as well. So yeah, setting those expectations, whatever those might be, individually for your classroom or as a school, really, really important. You can't just go in and go, okay, whatever happens, I'll do. We know we can do that. But whatever we can plan ahead of time, I definitely would encourage that. Write it down, print it out, put it online, and repeat it constantly with students, which you do anyways, because you just repeat yourself. I mean, that's part of being a mom too.
Exactly. It's constant repeat. Yes, right. Yes.
I do it to my husband too, but whatever. Yeah. So I think though that's what's really important is, and the communication piece, that's all part of it, is that communication, definitely making sure the kids understand by checking for that understanding. So even it's modeling, even if it's, okay, today we're going to practice, and we do this with our youngers, you know, how to line up and how to come into the classroom and where do you sit and that sort of thing, because it's going to be actually really important to their health and safety that they follow that. So it's even more important now in these times that we're living in. But yeah, different sets of expectations, obviously, in the classroom than at home learning or distance learning, or what I expect you to do at home. So there's, you know, 3 main areas, some of which there's a constant, common thing, and that is, the respect piece. How do you keep that? You make sure your children are respecting everything and everyone. That's always a challenge. But yeah, that's the main advice I would give any teacher, is just make sure you are setting those procedures and those expectations and communicating them multiple ways. So that there is and with the parents as well, because that way you can say, oh, it is my rule that doesn't do yada yada, and the parent's going to go, well, I never heard that. He said you never told him. So you tell the kid what you tell the kid, you tell the parent. Over and over and over. So really important.
It is. Thank you. It is so important that we actually connect with the parents as well, because too often you have the parents, following what the child say, although you could actually, when you say to the child, okay, let's have a look at your book, and you actually flick in the book, there it is right there, the parents just sitting there with their mouth open, because too often they're always cutting for the children, not checking. I've had that so many times when the students say, oh, but I didn't have the list of do's and don'ts. Okay, but that's your book, flick it open. And there it is, because the parents were arguing and saying, oh, but she didn't get it. Really? There it is.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Front page.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So agree. It is very true. And as educators, we constantly repeat. Repeat is actually reinforcing the head. And as you rightly say, having different mediums on which they actually get it. They actually, you do it in the classroom, you have it, the list in the classroom, you have it in your book, so they cannot say they don't know. Because or else we have a situation where the behavior is all over the place. Another thing that just crossed my mind is, when you guys go back, what I feel that you all would be looking at and would be doing is sorting out the children well-being, the mental state. You won't be able to teach at all, because that's where you'll be connecting because they're so scrambled.
Yes, and adolescents are really the worst, because they experience every emotion, every trauma, drama that they will experience in their whole entire life in this little tiny period. So that is also something that we're going to be emphasizing, is because of the challenge of that we're only going to see them twice a week, is connecting. How do you make those connections? So we're spending the first month of school basically identifying the students who need. We already started that process by having every teacher kind of rate their students from this last trimester, who needed more support, who was doing okay, and who really didn't need it. They did fine, either scenario, in class or distance learning. So we already know which students are going to need maybe a little bit extra. So emphasizing that with them, having our school counselor and teachers kind of put them in an advisory position to like, okay, how are we going to take care of that kid? What sort resources do they need? And it will be really vital, I think, particularly if we know that any minute we might have to go to distance learning 100%. So it is important to establish those relationships, because you have a lot more pull, a lot more influence if that kid knows that you care about them, you know them, and the parent too. As soon as you get your parent to your side, no matter what that kid says, they're going to turn to that kid and goes, well, you know, Miss Amos says that you da-da-da-da-da, instead of, well, my child said you never told me, you know. It's really important to establish that relationship with the parent as well. So we're social workers on top of being nurses, you know, we're social workers.
Exactly, isn't it? Yes. Because exactly. Another question is, have they given you guys any, because I am sure as an educator, you would be taking on the role of a counselor, because I am sure the school doesn't have enough to go around.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. We have one counselor for 440 kids. And so, she really is, her role, not just talking to students and setting up programs for them so that they feel supported. And that was challenging with distance learning, but she did a really good job, is to give us resources to teachers and parents too. So, you know, that's a challenging role. I played that role as the school counselor 20 years ago, or almost 23 years ago, when I first came into that district. And that was really challenging, was how do you support the kids and the parents and the teachers, and you're only one person. So she does a really good job. You know, it's limited, obviously, we're in a school and we don't have unending funds, but she was able to pull in outside resources and counselors who are interns, and, you know, and connect the kids with another adult. So she's really good at her job. So she does that with the kids and the teachers too. So I expect that I've turned to her saying, oh, I have this kid, how, you know, what can you do to connect them more, maybe talk to them or whatever. So, but yeah, you're right. It's going to be, that's probably just going to be a little more emphasized, because we'll have to really be looking for the kids who are having trouble emotionally. Because they've been socially isolated basically for three, you know, I mean, I think they're still socializing, but it is in school at adolescence so important, you know. Because that's honestly, that's the only reason why some of them come to schools, for lunch and recess. You know, like, oh, what's your favorite subject? My friends. Oh, okay. I just interrupt their social life, you know. So like when they're talking in class, like, okay, thank you for not talking anymore, you know, while I'm talking. And they're like, oh yeah,
exactly.
We're interrupting.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't it fun?
Yes, exactly. Is there anything else you want to say to us before we actually wrap up?
No, just a big thank you to you, Debbie, for setting this all up and taking on this mission. I think it is extremely important, and I feel honored that you reached out to me, just a little humble middle school teacher, an old middle school teacher.
What did I say?
But I really appreciate that. Oh yes, more mature,
exactly. Mature and wise teacher. Exactly.
Yes. Right.
Yes. Right. And I do thank you for accepting the offer to actually come and tell our story. No one else should be telling our story for us. And as I say to all my participants, I am on a mission so that we as educators, especially female educators, yes, male educators, I hear you. I understand you have an issue too. I understand that.
Yes.
But this is our time as female educators. We need to tell our story because our story is multidimensional. And I do feel that I'm on a mission to ensure that our stories are being told, because too often the same male educators are telling our story for us, right? So we now have to tell our own story. Hence the reason why I've actually created this platform, so we could actually tell our story. And thank you, male educators, for listening as well. But you know, this is the time for us to tell our story. As I say, it is multidimensional, because as some of you would have seen that, you know, have some of the parents who are educators and educating their children at home as well. And when the children actually come in on the platform, well, not really interrupting, but demonstrating the presence. This is what happens when they're actually teaching online. Hence the reason why I say our stories are multidimensional. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And tomorrow I should have another educator. I'm not too sure what is, you know, what we'll be looking at, because I haven't got that one together yet for tomorrow. And thank you for listening. And I'll be back tomorrow. And it's just a matter of we telling our story. Have a fantastic evenings wherever you are. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Debbie.
Bye-bye.